Hi, I'm Tom Hendrickson from the Devops Online Summit, where we bring DevOps leaders to the world, and welcome to the 2020 edition. Today, we're in day 2, and we have a live Ask Me Anything session with Gianluca Arbezzano. Gianluca lives in Italy, where he works for Influx Data. So this session is being presented by Influx Data, and we will have a special offer from them coming up at the end. Gianluca, introduce yourself to the people here at the Devops Online Summit.
Hey, hello everyone. Yeah, I work for Influx Data, as Tom said. I work as a SRE because other than providing, the tool chain of open source tools that you can use to do and manage time series data, we also have a cloud offer, and in some way that cloud has to be reliable. It has to scale and be easy to observe and monitor. And as a SRE there, that's my primary job. Like a few years ago, we moved to Kubernetes. So now all our new SaaS runs on that. But it's kind of a controversial topic because we are a database company, and everybody says that you shouldn't run databases in Kubernetes, but we are brave people, and so it's a huge learning experience for us about how to manage those kind of workloads. That's it.
Yeah. So Gianluca, you mentioned you're an SRE, and I know that's kind of a hot topic in the DevOps area. There's a lot of talk about that. We actually had another session about that as well. But talk to us a little bit about how you became an SRE, and then maybe where you came from before, kind of that transition too.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for the question. I mean, I started my career as a developer. So my first language was PHP. I made a bunch of CMS and a bunch of like backend work in that sense. And I quickly moved to, when I started working, like AWS was already a thing. So I'm a cloud native person in that terms because I never hooked like servers or routers other than for my home labs. So at works, like cloud for me was like the way to go. And I quickly learned how powerful as a developer I am when it comes to provisioning and automation, because I know how to code well, and I can write tests and all these infrastructures of code, all this automation, and the fact that DevOps means like being able to share the responsibility of the system administration with developers helped and fascinated me a lot, because I was kind of in the middle of being able to code, but also being able to help with the automation and with the system a little bit. And yeah, this was like the first step I did. And after that, I joined like Influx, and they had the challenge to build a cloud solution that actually I learned that it's a lot like it means that you have to do a lot of code to spin up and observe and manage compute resources. In our case, it was like at the beginning it was at AWS only, but now it's cross cloud. And so this is like kind of my journey to SRE right now, that everything is a little bit more stable in terms of like how the SaaS works. SRE means to me like the taking care about the observability of the system. So developer like write code, they close features, they solve bugs, but we have to keep in mind that these systems, as a developer, we have to remember that these systems runs in production, and running in production means that there are other people that we may take care of our code when we are like sleeping or where we are not on call. And we have to develop like features, like we have to develop capabilities that help us to write code that other people can observe, figure out, and eventually fix or mitigate in case of bad, patterns. And this is what I think is SRE today. So it doesn't really apply like we have a lot of books coming from Google about how they do SRE, but like Google is Google, other companies are other companies, so it's not easy to apply those concepts at whole in all the companies. So for me, if I have to do a definition of SRE, we are not like the system administrator that knows how to run Kubernetes. So we are not like the person that is able to hook together cloud native like application like Prometheus, Kubernetes, Envoy, Istio, whatever. We are developer almost that have a particular like focus on the reliability and scalability part of the code base. Same as front end people and developers usually take care about the interaction with people and the system. We take care about the reliability and the stability of the platform.
All right, excellent. Well, I just want to remind everyone this is Ask Me
about my role in the way that I learn it.
Sorry about that. Kind of talking over each other. I apologize, Gianluca.
Word.
I just wanted to say this is an Ask Me.
This is. Yeah, I think there is a bit of delay, so you can go. I'm done.
Sorry. So this is an Ask Me Anything. We have some people here online. If you want to turn on your audio or video and ask a question, or feel free to put it. We also have the Zoom group chat available if you want to just put it in there. Gianluca would be happy to answer your question and kind of tell us a little bit more about that as we go through. So Gianluca, I wanted to ask you a question. You talked a little bit about observability earlier, and I know in your session you talked about that. Talk about the importance of that in your work.
Yeah, as I said, I try to be the bridge between, the people that write code and the people that observe and keep the project running. And nowadays, those people are the same in different point in time. So you will maybe the person that writes the code at some point, but you can quickly become the person on call that has to manage the code that you wrote or other people wrote. And this change in mindset and culture requires a very fast feedback loop between how an application works and the code that is running. So let's try to make an example. Like we have a lot of metrics that we can get from different sources. Like we can get metrics from the database itself. We can get metrics from the CPU and the system. We can get metrics from third-party services like how quickly the CDN is serving contents, or how fast I can reach to AWS to get more power computing. All this information comes together in a centralized place. Like also our application sends tons of metrics. Like we can monitor like almost everything, like how many logins we have, the page latency, or if we have a queue, we can monitor how many messages we have in a queue, for how long they stay, how quickly they go and counts. So all these metrics go into a centralized place, and somebody has to, in some way, we have to use them and figure out what's going on. So previously, when like operations and developer was two different silos, they were speaking two different languages. They were looking for two different metrics. And the context that they built has two different entities, was like two different contexts. But at the end of the story, what you are looking for is the ability for your application to perform your task, your business in an effective way. So nobody cares about like, the CPU cycle at some point. Nobody cares about the number of logins that you have. We care about that. If you have an e-commerce, we care about the fact that people can buy what they want every time they want, because more people buy, more money we do, no matter of everything else. So in some way, we have to, all the metrics has to help us to get there, to figure out how far or how good we are at those. And this is, I think, the flavor that we get with observability now. Like our system has to be understood from stakeholders that are coming from everywhere. That we may be sysadmin, they will maybe developer, they will maybe PMs or VC that are looking for some kind of data. But we as a company have the same goal at the end, like be effective in our business, whatever business we have. And the fact that we run containers, we run ephemeral pods or ephemeral compute that comes and goes, means that it's very hard to point and click to a particular host or a particular server, because we don't have the name of the server anymore. So it's more like the term of observability, I think, fits well in this new mindset, because we don't have any pointers. We have to go in deep on the data we have to observe the system. Yeah, I see that there is a question, so
yeah.
feel free to ask.
Okay. Hi. This is Phi Nguyen. I'm a DevOps manager here at Pengen. So I have a question. So we talk about Carlos. You talk about fast feedback and metrics, right? So assume that in your company Influx, you guys have the metric down to all the way to the left, where the metric for development environment. If so, then how you handle the save cost between the development environment and the production environment? For example, in development environment, you don't have to scale up to whatever the production environment have, right? So, for example, in my stack development environment, I have one server, one EC2 running, but production I have 10. So how do you justify the metrics around this?
Yeah, thank you for your question. Yeah, I mean, there is the tendency for the like a good part of the industry to move to an on-demand like development environment. So you don't have anymore. We still have like what we call a staging environment, and like we don't get all the traffic that gets from production. We get a fraction of it that we can highly select. So by consequence, also the metrics that we get from that environment are way lower. Like there are a couple of ways you can do that. Like one of, depending on how you can set up this, but you can also label metrics. So we have all the metrics that we gather from the system have the environment label attached to it. So at the end of the story, for us, all the metrics that goes to the same endpoint. So all the metrics are stored in the same database, and we retrieve them in the same way, and we filter them based on the environment label that we have. So that's how we justify the cost, because at the end, all the metrics get stored in the same place, and we have this like environment label that we use for during query to filter where we are looking at. Obviously, like the metrics that come from the development environment has a very low priority, so usually they do not trigger pages or things like that. They just maybe send us messages on Slack, or you can open like a ticket automatically in your like tracking system to get and fix eventual issues. But in this way, and we like InfluxDB has also the concept of retention policies, so we can like manipulate and aggregate points when they come through. So if for production we have to store all the metrics that we may come like every 10 seconds, in development we can aggregate them and sample them in a different way, so they will be at some point less, they will occupy less volumes, and they will be less insights. So the cost will be cut there.
Right. Okay. Thank you for the answer. So follow up on that, right? So certainly when we say shift left, we will try to catch the problem as early as possible, right? So you see how, for example, problem only occurs when you have a lot of traffic running constantly. So do you think there's a need to run consistent tests on development environment so that we can catch this kind of problem?
I think the idea here is to develop a platform or a workflow that allows you to do what developers already do with the. I'm gonna do it's a similarities. So I don't know how I can tell you how we are trying to get there or what I see people doing try to get there. But when you do system programming, you can take a core dump from your process, and the core dump is like a snapshot of the runtime, and that you can run your code against it, simulating iterating on the same issue that make your program to panic. And if we have to translate this concept to infrastructure, we should be able to take a snapshot of the traffic that we are handling, even if it's huge. We should have a way to synthesize that traffic in a way that can be reused for for leveraging the development environment and trying to replicate the issue. And personally, I find very useful the concept of tracing for doing that. So for the concept of distributed tracing, because with metrics, it's very hard to figure out or to, let's say, reproduce the current state of the system. Looking at the metrics, because they are usually pre-aggregated. But traces, they represent the current state per request. So looking at the trace, it's way easier for me to figure out when or how that the root cause of the issue. So I think that's the idea for me, and it's working. It requires a lot of work and a lot of collaboration between layers, because code instrumentation is expensive, because based on the language you're working with. Like for languages like Java, Node.js, Python, it's a bit easier to do because you can instrument the code from the outside. But for languages like Go, you have to instrument the code where it is, and so it's a bit more expensive. But it's like distributed tracing for that is super valuable from my experience.
So just curious, what tool you use for tracing at Influx?
We use currently we use Jaeger, and has a tracer.
What is it? I'm sorry, I didn't.
Jaeger.
Okay, gotcha.
Jaeger. I can type it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
And we use open tracing as a standard to propagate the trace across.
Bless you.
Thank you. Yeah. Cool. Thank you. Thank you.
Excellent. Any other questions from the chat, or anybody else want to jump on? All right. I appreciate your time, Gianluca. I want to ask you, now you brought up something earlier about databases running on Kubernetes and kind of the challenges and how maybe some people think that's not a good idea. Talk to us a little bit about your experience at Influx Data and kind of how you guys have done that.
Yeah, I mean, the measure point for us about when we decided to onboard like Kubernetes is to challenge that sentence. Like, we are in a very unique, almost unique perspective, because we build databases, so we can like if we leverage and if we learn enough from the operational experience we do in a particular environment, we can make it better. And that was what drove us through our journey until now. And we learned a lot about how the shape of the data should be and how the scheduling works, because Kubernetes is very complicated, like in terms of how much you can tune it. So where to place the nodes, how many of them, where to place the pods, how of them you can have, and which kind of workload. So we spend, and we keep spending a lot of time trying to figure out all the select label policy and the toleration and the rules that we have to put in place in order to make it running, make our database running in a good way. So it's mainly that it's a time-consuming like task, but I think it's not impossible. Obviously, it depends on like database that you run and how time you have to spend on that. But for us, as I said, it was a very we are in a very unique position where we have to do it, because that's I think it's a solid statement. And if you can make your database good enough or resilient enough to work as Kubernetes requires you to run your workload, even when the database won't run in Kubernetes, that it's something that we support. Like our database can run outside of Kubernetes, obviously. Will be stronger than what you have. So it's good.
All right, excellent. Anybody else have some questions here for Gianluca? If you guys want, you can throw it in the chat, or if anybody wants to come on and turn their video on, or at least turn their audio on, feel free to ask Gianluca. He'd be happy. He's going to stay with us for another few more minutes. We're just doing a 30-minute Ask Me Anything session here on the DevOps Online Summit, just to give you guys some time to. Stefan has a question. Could Gianluca tell us what the advantages have turned out to be from using Kubernetes?
Yeah, one of the big advantages we have is the ability to be cross-cloud providers or cross-providers, even if they are not cloud. Just asking has a requirement to give us a Kubernetes up and running. So one of the requirements for us was to be able to deploy our distributed system across any provider or any provider, let's say. And Kubernetes gives us a solid API that we can use to make it happen. So we don't need to integrate with block storage from different cloud providers. We don't have to think about DNS from different cloud providers. We don't have to manage compute across cloud providers. Kubernetes handles that, and the requirement is clear to the customer, to the community, because we just have to say, you're going to run a Kubernetes, or we're going to run a Kubernetes for you. That's it. Everything runs on top. And another benefit, as I said, is a learning experience. As I said, we can say that the future is now. So we are in the situation where there is a highly dynamic environment where compute's power comes and go, and you can scale it up and down. And in the position where we are, where we need to create a database, when our goal is to create a solid database, we have to challenge it to that journey.
All right. Fee asks at Influx, do you have different roles for DevOps and SREs, or are they the same?
We have one team that has the same role. So let's say it's one, just SRE. But this is also possible because we really leverage the cloud providers that we use. So we have direct supports with them, and they help us with what is two hops, let's say. But we have a very like strong team that can do like both. There are definitely people that are more ops DevOps oriented. I'm the one that is like a developer more than everything else. So yeah, we are well spread, but the role is one.
So, so in that team, everyone can do DevOps and can do SRE at the same time, right?
Yeah, usually we turn the role. Some people are injected in the team that codes, and they help them to, have a careful keep a careful eye on reliability. Others are in the SRE team and they do more like DevOps stuff, but it's mainly driven by needs and skills and willing to learn situation.
Yeah, you know the reason I'm asking, right? Because earlier in your talk, you're talking about SRE and DevOps, and in the industry right now, the term kind of interchanges. So the role may be mixing. And I see different company they doing different ways. At least for my company, we SRE and DevOps are the same. But I see that other company they have a two different, very clear boundary between the two roles.
Yeah, I personally think we should have two different names because they require two different skills. They have two different targets. It ends up to be one. Maybe it's probably driven by also the hype of the term in some way. But I think that when I usually try to share my experience, I have and that's what I'm doing now. There is definitely, as you said, a clear differentiation, and I think it's fair to have those two as a different terms and different teams, skills, requirements, goals, and so on.
All right. Well, Gianluca, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing a little bit more of your time with us.
It's a pleasure for me, so thank you for the invite.
Excellent. Well, we hope you're enjoying the DevOps Online Summit. To gain lifetime access to this great content, make sure you upgrade for VIP tickets. And as I mentioned, if you are interested in trying Influx Cloud, check out the link bit.ly/DOS-influx, and this will also be in the show notes. On behalf of Gianluca Arbezzano, I am Tom Henriksen for the DevOps Online Summit.